They say hindsight is 2020, but that's also a year many people would like to forget about. The early months of 2020 brought COVID-19, a virus that is still impacting people's lives today. In tonight's Eye on KELOLAND Summer Roddershot takes a look back at COVID and how it's changed over the past 5 years.
In March of 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic turned people's lives upside down. While the entire world was affected, doctors say that South Dakota's location and population gave us an advantage.
When it first hit the coast, we still didn't see much for cases. We didn't know that much about it. And what it gave us was actually a 3-month lead where we could start preparing and start getting ready for what we knew was already in Washington and already in New York.
While social distancing was one of the ways to slow the spread of the disease, 5 years later, you've most likely had it.
Whether you got vaccinated or not, your body has probably seen 1 or 2 different versions of that coronavirus. And so the body's ready and more capable of dealing with it.
But the virus continues to mutate and change. Over the past 5 years, the disease has claimed over 3,000 lives in South Dakota. Dr. Cowles says there's good news moving forward.
What we're not seeing as often is those horribly ill folks who end up in the intensive care unit on ventilators long-term, end up with permanent lung damage. And because that has tapered off, our advice now is to treat it very much like any other infection you have, but certainly make sure you're under your doctor's care so they can help you through the highs and the lows.
While that is great news for people living in 2025, that doesn't change what we went through in 2020. When the virus first came to the United States, it sounded like students were just going to get an extra long spring break as everyone quarantined for 2 weeks. However, those 2 weeks turned into the rest of the school year for KELOLAND. This was a situation teachers had never dealt with.
We played it out like any other illness or bird flu and just be cautionary. But then once we shut down and schools closed, then we had to quickly build lessons for kids.
The Sioux Falls School District gave students and their families the choice of what they wanted to do in the fall of 2020.
We allowed some students to learn virtually, though we had a virtual academy which had thousands or over 1,000 students who learned remotely. And otherwise, students came in, they took desks and separated desks.
That 1,000 students the first year turned into around 100 the second year. While online learning provided an alternative option, it still came with challenges for some students.
What happened when the pandemic hit, and from the test scores and our attendance and our graduation rates across the country and in Sioux Falls and in South Dakota, we saw a dip.
But thanks to the COVID funds the school district had received, those numbers have gone back up. While the pandemic had a large effect on schools, it also affected churches. Many churches opted to have online sermons during the first stages of the pandemic, which happened to be over Easter.
Easter is the happiest time of the year in the church. It is the promise of God that our sins are forgiven in the resurrection of Jesus. And it's the most joyful time, and yet we were recording services in an empty church, preaching straight at a camera.
Learning to switch everything to an online format wasn't an easy task.
We had 0 digital footprint. We didn't stream our services. We didn't have much of anything. Suddenly, we were overnight figuring out how can we stream our services? How can we provide online worship?
While the church leaders had their struggles, the congregation also felt the effects of lockdown.
When COVID first hit, we as pastors talked about what's this going to do to our congregation. We talked about that isolation, the cabin fever, and how we would be needed even more in counseling and the tensions that can rise when you're cooped up together, and that certainly happened.
Another way that COVID hurt people was when they were unable to work. At Granite City, for around half of the year, they only had a skeleton crew.
We had to close down for a little bit, and it was just left with a few managers to run the place, make sure we had to-go orders ready. We couldn't really let a whole lot of people in, so we had to run all the orders out to the vehicles, and we were basically just management staff from open to close.
Bauer says since COVID, it seems people don't get too upset when heading to work.
People love coming to work and, seeing their friends, seeing their coworkers, and just, having a great time, and once again appreciating their job a lot more because, it's nice to be around people.
In winter of 2020, Granite City was one of the restaurants that put ice fishing shacks outside the restaurant so that people could social distance while also eating out. While the pandemic is over, Bauer says people still call asking if they're going to bring back the ice shacks.
It was kind of like having your own little restaurant. And, you know, even if our employees had to put on a jacket, which we allowed them to do, you know, to serve people out there, the employees actually kind of loved it too. And it was just so much fun to have them.
Showing that even though COVID-19 changed the way we live, maybe something good could have come out of the situation. With Eye on Kelloland, I'm Summer Ottershot.
And we did stories with all the people you saw in this segment during the first year of the COVID-19 pandemic. We posted links to those stories under this one on KELLOLAND.com.